Steve Hanke thought that was like the brilliant best times of El Salvador, where he says that in 2001, long before Bukele arrived on the scene, El Salvador phased out its domestic currency, the colon, and introduced a dollarized competitive currency regime, one in which the dollar was legal tender, but any other currency could be used. Since then, the country has rediscovered economic stability. So he says that this dollar period since 2001 has been great for El Salvador, that despite, then does not mention any of the exodus of the population. You know, when we look at charts, when we look at data, when we look at signals max, when we look at how electricity prices are moving parabolic, when we look at bond markets collapsing, when you look at the extreme moves, you start to think like something's wrong there, right? One of us is wrong. Either the data is wrong or our perception's wrong. Well, here, the exodus of Salvadorans to America and elsewhere was a sign that, in fact, what Steve Hanke said was a winning formula was actually a losing formula.
Right. Well, with that U.S. dollar came the exportation of gangs into El Salvador, and you had the rise of gang violence. So Steve Hanke, I believe, would think that that's a positive thing. Apparently, he thinks that all kinds of homicides happening on a daily basis is great, according to Steve Hanke, and that the fact that this tide is turned on that is a failure. Again, total misunderstanding of how the English language works.
A man is a woman now, and a woman is a man now, and a winner is a loser, and a loser is a winner. Like, they just decide out of the blue that the entire meaning, whatever language it's in, is the opposite of what it used to be. And that is what George Orwell said was totalitarianism. That's a description of what totalitarianism is.
Well, whenever you can get away with the decadence of reinventing the meaning of words on the fly to suit a political agenda, it's because of those who control the money printing are totally autocratically controlling the economy. So what we have in the United States and other countries around the world where central banks are in power is authoritarianism. So it's authoritarianism by the money printer. Here in El Salvador, it's the complete opposite. There's the rise of a meritocracy where there is no money printer. There's a Bitcoin that is legal tender, and people are left to their own devices to be entrepreneurially excellent and to come up with ways to improve their lives and their family lives, and the results are on the ground. You can see it. It's palpable. So again, because he's associated with the money printers, because he's in league with the money printers, he's forced. Essentially, he's coercing his readers into believing the unbelievable, and because it's essentially propaganda. Let's be honest. Steve Hanke is a propagandist.
He might believe that winning is failing and failing is winning. Like that might be their mindset. It is brainwashing that has happened. What I observe as a Bitcoiner and somebody who hasn't gone insane, who is not smoking some fiat dope, you know, the fact is I could see the data shows that they are actually losing. So yes, they won that battle of seizing and stealing the assets of Russia, for example, but they're losing the war. Because not only are they losing the war because they, in terms of their electricity and energy prices, but you lost your exorbitant privilege. You know, there have been 3 layer 1 monies in history. You've had gold, you had U.S. Treasury, and you have Bitcoin. They blew the U.S. Treasury for no reason. They just did it themselves. That's losing. Like, you lost blowing up your own exorbitant privilege. You took it away. You blew it up.
Steve Hanke is gaslighting the world by writing words that make no sense in a National Review or some magazine that supposedly has some reputation, and people read it and they get confused. And that's what the point is, to confuse people. And once you confuse people, you can feed them a lot more lies. There's clearly a lie. I mean, he's been doing this for years. He's one of 3 or 4 journalists that you can hire to write gaslighting nonsense in these periodicals. And but it's clearly the history. He's on the wrong side of history because everything in El Salvador is picking up.
Before we continue, help us clicking that YouTube like button and subscribe now to our channel. This shows the algorithm that you valued this information. And it helps us spread that message. Sharing is caring. And now, let's continue.
And they can do this through things like censorship. They've done this through like hiding or silencing online anybody who talks about certain topics. Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg recently admitted to the fact that he, at the behest of the FBI, silenced certain stories so that a narrative could be pushed forward. Think of the World Economic Forum. you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. Remember, that is the phrase that they use. Now, of course, in the Enlightenment societies and civilizations like the United States, like Europe, are based on Enlightenment ideals that all humans have the right to life, liberty, and property, or pursuit of happiness is often used for the third one, like in the U.S. Constitution. So you'll own nothing, you'll have no property, and you'll be happy. So that's like changing the meaning of Enlightenment ideals of what humans want and need and what a government is there to provide. The government is there to provide protection for life, liberty, and property. So here we have, you will own nothing and you'll be happy. Marty Bent refers this to a story out of the United Kingdom where they're winning. The United Kingdom is winning. So here is the headline from the UK. My mum owns a small cafe in Leicester. Her electricity bill has just jumped from £10,000 a year to £55,000 a year. She is working out her options, but more than likely she will be forced to close.
Well, let me explain this in terms of the board game Monopoly, which everybody understands and played for many years. And on February 24th of 2022, something happened in the global Monopoly game. Up until then, it was, the U.S. dollar was the world reserve bank, just like a Monopoly. They had one bank, it's all the money. And people were buying and selling properties on this Monopoly board, and everyone was participating, and we had some winners and losers. But on February 24th of 2024, what happened is that there's a couple of squares on the Monopoly board called utilities. What Russia did was, you know what, if you land on our utility square, we're going to charge you about 50,000 times more than is in the rule book that you're currently playing Monopoly under. And this poor woman in Leicester, who has a coffee shop, she's suddenly getting the new Monopoly board game that says if you land on the utility bill, that is your energy bill, you're going to have to pay 5,000 times higher, because that's the new game, the new Monopoly board. And if you never got the memo, it doesn't matter, because you are a winner by paying all that into money that goes into, by the way, Electricity France, EDF, which owns all the utilities in the UK, by giving France all of your hard-earned money over there at the crisp shop and the chip shop and the flaky fish and chip shop. You're winning. You're winning by losing. You're winning by going broke. You're winning because you're at the food bank. You're winning because you're living on Marmite. You're winning. Don't you get it?
Again, they keep on saying you're winning, despite the evidence. So of course, if they think they're winning, even though the evidence and the data and the numbers and the charts and the just looking with your own two eyes, you could see they're losing. Those same people, it makes sense that they're going to look at El Salvador and say that they're losing. Even though, as we've pointed out, the tourism is increasing, the foreign direct investment is increasing, the diaspora is returning. Those same people who fled under the period where Steve Hanke says was great, those people are returning. I'm going to look at a story from Germany where, again, they're part of this winning team. Their electricity prices are climbing. Their energy prices are parabolic. They turned off their nuclear for some reason. They decided. Nobody else forced them to do it. They turned off their natural gas. Nobody forced them to do it. But here's one of the consequences, and that is that, to put things into perspective, supermarket prices in Germany are rising at a record pace. Food CPI, consumer price inflation, jumped 16.6% year on year in August, the highest food price inflation since the start of the statistics, and those go back to 1992. You can see that little parabolic move there. Doesn't look great, but hey, if you say you're winning, you're winning.
The Monopoly board has been reconfigured. The rules have changed. The U.S. dollar dominating the global economy is no longer the case. Countries are doing bilateral trade in currencies outside of the U.S. dollar. And you've got supply lines breaking, and you've got politicians in Europe and the UK and America who are ignoring the fact that the only possible way to stop this inflation from ravaging these economies and causing death and famine is to actually allow energy to flow from the east to the west. That's actually what winning would look like. Ultimately, there will be no choice. Ultimately, that will be the outcome. It's just a matter of how much pain you're willing to go through before that eventuality takes place.
El Salvador, which used to be in the world in which the United States and the U.S. dollar reigned supreme, they used to be the most violent nation in the world. This August, they had their least violent, the lowest number of homicides in their modern history. We'll look at a headline which is quite tragic from America. U.S. life expectancy fell by nearly a year in 2021 to 76.1, the lowest since 1996, the first two-year drop since early 1960s, and the largest since 1921-23 period. Again, you just look at the facts from a stable foundation like Bitcoin, where there is no disintegration and entropy happening. Like, you could see who is lying, where the truth is, in fact.
Yeah, life expectancy dropping in America. You've got tens of thousands of people dying from OxyContin overdoses put together by the major pharmaceutical companies. Steve Hanke calls that winning. You've got major people dying from fentanyl in the street, homeless, living in their own defecation, the complete disintegration of society. According to Steve Hanke, that's winning. So yeah, they're winning. They're doing great in America. It's deaths of despair, life expectancy is collapsing, infant mortality is on the up, and the GDP is contracting, and you've got a neo-feudal, entrenched monarchy/aristocracy and oligarchy in America that's ripping people off left and right. But according to Steve Hanke, that's winning.
Small ebook, big impact, The Wealth Tree. The only 4 ways that will make you financially free forever. Download it here for free.